Welcome to our spectacular magic show today, where mind-blowing moments await. But when she turned around, nothing was there. Just as the audience gasped, the magician raised his hand with a flourish. The mirror person's soul detached from their body, following the magician's lead out of the mirror. The magician chanted, poof. The soul vanished, the woman normal. He dramatically removed her red dress. The dazzling magic show came to an end, attracting not just attention, but sparking debate. Meanwhile, the prince met Eisenheim in the parlor. The clever prince sought magic's secret, but Eisenheim skillfully dodged it. To confirm his suspicions, the prince invited Eisenheim to perform at the palace next time. He left with his fiancée, leaving her with a cheeky challenge. Eisenheim's last words seemed to spark a realization in Sophie. The next day, she secretly sent him a letter, and they met in a deserted street. Sophie sneakily hopped onto Eisenheim's carriage. Turns out he recognized her during the magic show, despite them not having seen each other for 15 years. Sophie had always hoped to see Eisenheim again. After a brief chat, he hurriedly hopped off the carriage, while Sophie clutched the necklace he once gave her. Meanwhile, the prince had ordered his sleuth to gather intel on Eisenheim. Eisenheim's real name was Edward, born into a rural family. But he had a magical encounter as a kid when he crossed paths with a mysterious traveling magician. The elderly magician waved his left hand and pulled a frog from Edward's gullet. Edward was puzzled, yet more astonishing was when the old man twisted his to Edward's wonder. The frog transformed into a rose, and with a little shake, the rose became a flute. Edward had never seen anything quite. The flute floated, then poof. The old man vanished, the tree too. From then, Edward loved magic. Whether at home or on the go, he practiced magic, catching the eye of a curious countess. So Sophie followed Edward on horseback, becoming fast friends. He had her pick a card, remember it, and poured it back into the deck. Marvelously, Edward not only found the card but made it float in midair. Sophie looked on in awe, when suddenly, a servant from the countess they popped in. Due to Edward's humble origins, Sophie's family forbade them. Yet love blossomed in their hearts, lasting for years. They found sneaky ways to meet, even building a secret fort. Edward promised Sophie that one day they would fly away together. He even crafted a special necklace that could transform with just a twist. The necklace could change shape, revealing a hidden picture of Edward. But good times didn't last, as one day, the old count caught wind. They hid in their secret fort, hoping Edward could work his magic. However, the magical wish didn't come true, as Sophie was taken back by the count's servants, and her entire family ended up in jail. After that day, Edward vanished until 15 years later as Eisenheim. He debuted in Vienna, borrowing a handkerchief from the audience and putting it in a box. Then he cut an orange with a knife, pulled out the seeds, and planted them in a pot. As Edward raised his hand slowly, the seeds began to sprout at lightning speed. The audience was left in disbelief as the orange tree rapidly grew before their eyes. Finally, fruits emerged, and Edward's fame skyrocketed. He tossed oranges to the audience and asked about the handkerchief. When a female audience member opened the box, the handkerchief was missing. Just then, 2 butterflies fluttered back on stage carrying it, leaving the audience applauding wildly. Edward's fame exploded instantly, and media outlets scrambled to cover him. In no time, Edward became a renowned magician, with every performance a full house. A detective arrived with guards, as the prince wanted to catch a glimpse of the show. Curious, the detective visited Edward's backstage, clearly impressed by he was eager to uncover the secret behind it, but Edward only taught him a simple trick, all while the prince was on his way. Edward's assistant was clearly on edge, but Edward remained cool as a cucumber. Towards the end of the show, he brought up a topic about souls. He requested a volunteer to help him out. The clever prince jumped at the chance to investigate, so he chose his fiancée Sophie to join him on stage. The moment she walked up, Edward recognized her, yet Sophie didn't realize Eisenheim was Edward. After the magic show ended, Edward said something that struck a chord with Sophie, suddenly making her realize Eisenheim was her long-lost Edward. She invited him to meet through a letter. Although now she's the prince's fiancée, Sophie wasn't truly into it. They were childhood friends, and their families had a good relationship. To the prince, Sophie was merely a pawn. After a brief chat, they parted ways. This moment was spotted by Sophie's watchful minions, who reported to the detective. Upon learning about Edward and Sophie's acquaintance, she didn't instant. Instead, she arranged a meeting for Edward at a restaurant to dig deeper into the relationship. She discovered they were childhood friends and advised Edward to keep things friendly. Otherwise, she wouldn't guarantee Prince's actions fell close to him, they said. But let's be real, the detective was just a servant. The prince soon hosted a grand ball. Edward was invited as a guest performer. He waved at a blank canvas and bam! It revealed an image, prompting the lords below to instantly recognize it as the audience burst into laughter, truly enjoying the show and his playful remark. Yet, the prince stood up, marching over to the canvas, pointing out the lack of brushstrokes and claiming it must be some chemical trick, accusing Edward of fooling everyone. He really searched the area, but Sophie saved the day by breaking the awkward tension. Edward cheekily asked the butler to turn on the lights for the prince to see the painting better. But the prince simply pulled the canvas away, challenging Edward to perform without props. Edward eagerly agreed, asking the prince for some accessories.